Welcome to the WWE Podcast, the most passionate and authentic wrestling analysis on the web. We've got you covered with every Raw, Smackdown, and NXT show, giving you a no bullshit opinion. We know you love wrestling. We do too. So let's get this show underway.
And that's the bottom line. What? 'Cause Stone Cold said so.
Hey guys, what's going on? And welcome to a brand new edition of WWE Rivalries. And yes, brand new. I know I took a couple weeks off there for the holidays, as I'm sure many of you did, and I'm hoping that all of you guys enjoyed the best possible Christmas, Hanukkah, holiday season as a whole as you possibly could, because obviously it was different this year, and obviously we couldn't see all of our loved ones, but I'm hoping that you guys had the best possible outcome for a very bizarre year. And even though we are far from over this COVID experience and everything else that's not too right in the world, I'm hoping that the holiday season was able to at least get your minds off of that for a short amount of time. And we're into 2021. And you know what? It doesn't mean that everything in 2020 automatically gets left behind because the calendar flipped to January, but is at least maybe a bit of a symbol that we are approaching some form of a light at the end of the tunnel here. But as I said, I was off for 2 weeks, and you guys got some from the Vault editions on Christmas Day and New Year's Day, and we're coming off of a big rivalry in the last time we did a brand new show when I had Matt on, and it was Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Vince McMahon. And you know what? That got me thinking of other rivalries, and one in particular about Stone Cold Steve Austin that wasn't necessarily a performer versus performer rivalry. And this was actually an authority figure versus an authority figure rivalry. And if you guys haven't guessed it yet, this week I will be covering Eric Bischoff versus Stone Cold Steve Austin from 2003-2004 when they were co-general managers on Monday Night Raw together. And for a lot of you guys who didn't know that, it was quite a entertaining and comedic feud that these two had going on in the early 2000s. And I can't wait to jump into that just in a bit here. But as per usual, I like to give my 2 cents in on what has gone on in recent weeks, or I guess in this case it will be recent weeks because I haven't spoken to you since I was on with Matt on December 27th, just under 2 weeks ago. And look, I'll start at the top with Raw Legends, and you know what, guys, I don't like to come on here and be negative, but what an absolute pile of garbage that was, eh? Like, I knew it was going to be bad. And I kind of touched on that with Matt when I was on with him a week and a half ago. And I understood that it was going to be filled with a lot of corny, stale characters doing shticks that no one really cares about, and a lot of wrestlers who are way past their prime. But WWE went above and beyond in how bad this show was, and the ending to it could not, and I repeat, could not have been worse. With Goldberg coming out and becoming the next challenger for Drew McIntyre. We thought it was going to be Roman Reigns, but it ends up being Drew McIntyre, and he's going to challenge him for the WWE Championship at the Royal Rumble. And there are so many layers to this that are just absolutely terrible. And I think the biggest thing that stands out to me here is that WWE tried to swerve us with Goldberg cutting that promo on, I believe it was The Bump. I don't watch that show, so I'm not too privy to what it's all about. But WWE tried to swerve us by thinking that Goldberg was going to collide with Roman Reigns to draw on the program they had leading into last year's WrestleMania, and a match that ultimately never came to fruition because of Roman Reigns taking a leave of absence. But they try and swerve us and by thinking that they're going to revisit that. But then in reality, he comes back to challenge Drew McIntyre. And I don't understand why WWE thought that was a good thing. Perhaps they called an audible and decided to send Goldberg to Raw. But I just don't understand how this guy who is a part-timer and hasn't been a full-time competitor for, I want to say, 16 years at this point, just has the authority in WWE. And I'm talking from a storyline perspective here, because obviously in real life we know that Vince is just going to, for lack of better words, bend over for any guy from the Attitude Era that can sell a ticket and make a quick buck for him. But from a storyline perspective, how does Goldberg have the authority to just place himself in whatever program or on whatever brand he damn well chooses? And I just think it's absolutely inexcusable. It is absolutely inexcusable booking for WWE, because best case scenario here, Drew McIntyre beats him. What does that do? Are we supposed to take it that Drew McIntyre needs to beat Goldberg to solidify himself as a legit champion? Like, okay, maybe you could make the argument that that's the biggest win of his career, but A, I would argue that Randy Orton is a bigger win than his career. B, he already beat a big-name part-timer in Brock Lesnar at last year's WrestleMania to win the championship in the first place. And second of all, Goldberg doesn't really have a lot of respect from the fan base at this point. And you know what? I'm only speaking for myself and a lot of comments I see online. But does anyone out there actually think that Drew McIntyre needs to be Goldberg to solidify himself as a legitimate top babyface world champion in WWE? This match gains nothing across the board. Because then in the worst case scenario, you could have Goldberg beating this guy. In Drew McIntyre, I mean. And that, like, I'm telling you guys, when I saw Goldberg come out and I thought about the possibility of him beating Drew McIntyre, I legitimately said to myself that if he beats Drew McIntyre for the WWE World Championship at the Royal Rumble, I may have to stop watching for a while. And that takes a lot, because I have been a loyal WWE fan for over 20 years at this point. And aside from a 2-3 year blip when I was in high school and I didn't think it was cool to watch WWE, and in result, I actually missed out on a lot of the final good years of guys like John Cena, HBK, Undertaker, Triple H. So that was my bad. I've been a loyal fan consistently for the last 2 decades. And there has been a lot of poor programming in that time. But this Goldberg stuff, this Goldberg nonsense and crap needs to end. Because if he beats Drew McIntyre, it will be the third up-and-coming world champion that he abruptly stops in his tracks. He did it with Kevin Owens, 4 years ago at Fastlane. He did it with Bray Wyatt, The Fiend, last year in one of the most infamous championship matches or championship wins I've ever seen in my entire life of watching pro wrestling. But if he does it to Drew McIntyre, a guy who is being pushed to the moon and is being presented as on par with Roman Reigns as the co-faces of the WWE right now, I don't know if I could stomach much more of this nonsense. Because Goldberg is the worst possible option to go into WrestleMania as world champion. And, you know, when he did it against Kevin Owens, I said, okay, they're going to have the rubber match between Goldberg and Brock at WrestleMania. They're going to put the strap on Brock. I can understand it. The Fiend, when he beat The Fiend for the Universal Championship last February, I almost threw a fit, but I stuck around because I said, okay, they're insisting on doing this Roman versus Goldberg nonsense match, and they felt that maybe that was the only way to get Roman Reigns over as a babyface by facing off against a guy like Goldberg, who for the most part has been universally hated and unanimously hated by the WWE fan base since he came back in 2017. Or maybe not since 2017, but certainly since he made his return last year. And I believe, I would say my hate, to not go off on a side tangent here, but personally I could say that my resentment for Goldberg started with that atrocity against The Undertaker in, I guess it was May of 2019 at Crown Jewel or one of those pay-per-views. But since then, I just have had zero time for Goldberg, and he's just come back and squash guy after squash guy after squash guy. Yeah, he lost the belt to Braun Strowman, and you can argue that his win over Goldberg, Braun Strowman that is, cemented himself as a top-level champion. But this is just absolute crap. And I don't know how anyone could defend it. If you're into Goldberg and you're into this program, then more power to you. I respect your opinion, but honestly, I just cannot think of a single positive aspect to bringing Goldberg back, just even if he loses. Because even if he loses, what does it gain? I don't think Drew McIntyre needs to be Goldberg. I don't think that this is going to be a program that stretches, or I hope to God it's not a program that stretches beyond the Royal Rumble. So yeah, that really ruined Monday Night Raw for me, to put in not so many words. And then, you had Hulk Hogan doing his nonsensical crap. At this point, that's what it is. It's just nonsense. I've been over this shtick since 2005. Then he does it with Drew mimicking him. Like, I don't understand. This is the equivalent of if Hulk Hogan came back in 1998 and did this bit with Stone Cold Steve Austin. Because that's essentially what Drew McIntyre is. The top babyface in the company, like Austin was 23 years ago. Could you imagine Austin mimicking an older wrestler's gimmick like Hulk Hogan, because Hulk Hogan was already old in 1998? Like, you just don't do that. Why is Drew McIntyre mimicking Hulk Hogan like he's a 10-year-old guy meeting his favorite wrestler for the first time at a meet and greet backstage? I don't understand this. Why is Drew McIntyre doing this? It's just pandering to people that don't want to be pandered to. Like, look, I respect Hulk Hogan, the character, because we obviously know what he's done as a person. But I just don't understand how WWE actually thinks that this is what the fans want to see. And you know what? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm in the minority here. But I've been over Hulk Hogan since 2005. Because, he came back in 2002. It was a nice homecoming after, 8 years away from WWE. He did the NWO gimmick with WCW, had been a heel for almost 5 years running. He had the match with The Rock, passed the torch to him. They went back to the red and yellow gimmick, and he did that on and off for about 3 years until 2005. And I believe it ended, his on and off part-time run ended at a SummerSlam in 2006 against Randy Orton. But, since then, who's really craved and had a starvation for the Hulk Hogan gimmick? I mean, it's enough now. We don't want to see it. Like, the guy's, pushing 80? Like, I'm sorry, but I want to remember these guys as they were in their prime. I don't want to see them as, tired old men desperately trying to do this shtick that was popular 40 years ago. And the same thing with Ric Flair. Like, I love Ric Flair, but could we stop trotting him out there? Like, he is, 2 years removed from a heart attack, and he went into a coma or something along those lines of that severity? Like, look, if you want to bring him out there to wave hello and say this or that, but stop trying to have him do this gimmick. Like, why is he having a promo with Randy Orton? Why is Randy Orton going around just being a bully to these legends? Like, I don't understand that. Even that, the Randy Orton thing. Like, why is Randy Orton walking around bullying legends? Like, is that supposed to push his character more towards being a heel that's over? He's over as a heel. He's the best heel in the company right now. He has the most real heat in the company. Him bullying old men isn't going to change that or push it in a positive direction. Build him as a badass. Build him as a good wrestler. Have him beat Jeff Hardy. We don't have to see him just walking around the stadium on the hunt to bully around legends. And that bit with Mark Henry, like, what was that? Like, come on. Like, Mark Henry's 4 years removed from being an in-ring competitor? Like, we're led to believe that Mark Henry can't stand up for himself at all? It was just a very, very bad Monday Night Raw, top to bottom for me. I was very disappointed, and I knew it was going to be bad. I was expecting it to be a not good Monday Night Raw, but I thought that they would come up with something better than that nonsense. I don't know how WWE writes this stuff, and Vince McMahon says to himself and to the rest of the crew, yep, this is good television. This is what the crowd wants to see. It's imagine having, who's an old wrestler who was past his prime but could probably still step in the ring in the early 2000s. I don't know. Like, take your pick. Take your pick. Maybe a Bret Hart, let's say. Picture Bret Hart walking out at the end of a Monday Night Raw and challenging Eddie Guerrero to a world championship match in favor of a guy like Kurt Angle at the Royal Rumble. Like, they wouldn't do this back then, but now it's like they have no confidence in their current superstars to perform at a main event level and draw. And maybe they think that because of the ratings, but you know what? The ratings aren't down for that. It's for bad storytelling like we saw this week. And you know what makes me even more upset is the fact that we know WWE has the capability for good storytelling and good writing and good booking. Because look no further than the main event picture over on Smackdown right now. Is there a better thing in WWE than Roman Reigns? And better yet, has there been a better thing in the last 2 to 3 years than Roman Reigns' heel run right now? It's absolutely phenomenal. No pun intended. It is absolutely phenomenal what they are doing with Roman Reigns. And the way they're utilizing Jey Uso, the way they're utilizing Kevin Owens, guys who have never been more relevant. Well, perhaps Kevin Owens was when he was Universal Champion on Monday Night Raw in 2016. But since then, by far the most relevant Kevin Owens has been. And I think they're building him to look very strong. And I hope that he stays as a main eventer and doesn't go back into the waste of a mid-card. SmackDown is a weak product, I think, right now. Except, although what they're doing with Big E pushing him win the Intercontinental Championship is helping in that regard. But I think Roman Reigns and how good the writing has been in that particular storyline has brought it up significantly. And it makes me want to watch SmackDown more than Monday Night Raw. Because take the rosters at face value. If you don't watch the product, but you're familiar with the talent, you would say Monday Night Raw is better tenfold. And it's not even debate. Look at the talent they have over on Monday Night Raw. Drew McIntyre, Randy Orton, Bray Wyatt, Matt Riddle, Keith Lee, The Hurt Business, Jeff Hardy, AJ Styles, Sheamus. Like, look at those guys. That is an absolute beast of a roster. Even though their characters are a bit annoying right now. Miz and Morrison, both guys who can work tremendous matches and are legitimate mid-carders. Upper mid-carder if you look at the Miz. Like, this is the type of talent and superstars you have on Monday Night Raw. And then compare it to SmackDown. Roman Reigns, Big E, kind of, but he's still working his way and navigating the waters as a legitimate singles competitor. Kevin Owens, Daniel Bryan. When Seth Rollins is back, you could add him into that mix. But after that, who's an upper mid-card guy? Baron Corbin, I guess. Dolph Ziggler's in the tag team now. This is what I'm trying to say. Monday Night Raw is going out of their way to be bad. And this isn't to say that SmackDown has been incredible either. Like I said, it's been a weak product aside from Roman Reigns. But just how good that program has been has made me make it a point to watch all of SmackDown. While over on Monday Night Raw, well, I mean, I watch it all, but I mean, I have to watch it on record because there are some segments that I just have to fast forward through. So, look, I hope Monday Night Raw gets better, more towards the Royal Rumble, but I'm not too confident with where they're going in the main event picture with Goldberg now sticking his nose in a place that nobody wants it to be. But look, let's get back on track and get into rivalries and back to a way more positive time. And a time where the authority figure had a positive impact on the product. And that was when Eric Bischoff was the general manager of Monday Night Raw in early 2003. And look, we all know what he did in WCW. He ran the show behind the scenes and was the on-screen character. But when he got over to Monday Night Raw in late 2002 and became the general manager, the inaugural general manager, that is, we saw him in just an on-screen role, and boy, did he ever knock it out of the park. To this day, in my opinion, there has never been a better general manager figure than what's his name? Eric Bischoff. Sorry, guys, brain fart there. Rivaled only by Paul Heyman while he was the figurehead on SmackDown in 2003-2004. So you had Eric Bischoff running roughshod as the heel GM on Monday Night Raw. And then in early 2003, we have Stone Cold Steve Austin return in Montreal at the No Way Out pay-per-view to face off against Eric Bischoff, in which he obviously squashed Eric Bischoff. And this was coming off of his 7th-month hiatus from WWE in a real-life walkout, which Matt and I touched on the Rivalries episode 2 weeks ago. So obviously, Stone Cold has his last full-time run as an in-ring competitor that culminates at the WrestleMania 19 pay-per-view match against The Rock, of which The Rock goes over. But he goes away after a while, quietly goes away in WWE. And then this results in Eric Bischoff really starting to continue to run roughshod on Monday Night Raw. And on a particular Monday Night Raw where Eric Bischoff was using his power to push around a particular female competitor, a surprise return stopped him in his tracks.
That happens from time to time. Don't worry about it.
Bischoff,
we're going to have a great time.
Got a limousine to take him and Trish to the...
Just you.
To the hotel?
And I. Alone. In my hotel room.
Wait a minute, this is someone arriving.
I mean, it's Linda McMahon.
Eric, look.
Linda McMahon is here, but why?
Eric Bischoff is just now realizing.
Somebody help her. Referee, what are you just standing there looking at her like that for? Help her out. Help her out. Somebody get some help from the back.
Look how fast Eric Bischoff moves. His tone has changed.
Help her out. For crying out loud, you can't just stand around watching this kind of... Now be careful with her. Be careful with her.
King, I don't know why Linda's here. Hopefully we'll find out.
Be very, very careful.
We're back live on Raw.
Coach, I gotta ask you a question. Do you know what Linda McMahon is doing? There she is.
Here she comes.
Why is she here? Do you have any idea?
I have no idea. You're the one that always talks about your sources.
Yeah, but
where are your sources
I
now?
have impeccable sources, but this has caught him off guard. Nobody's told me a thing about that Linda McMahon was going to be here.
I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of the board of directors of WWE.
Uh-oh.
So I'll stop it there because when Linda McMahon showed up on Raw back in the day, you really knew that, to quote Jim Ross, business was about to pick up, and she would always speak on behalf of the board of directors. Because in real life back then, Linda McMahon was the CEO of WWE, and obviously she has since moved on to a political career. But during this time, she had real life power in WWE, and she only showed up when it was a decision that almost superseded that of Vince McMahon. And, you heard that bit of Eric Bischoff, talking dirty to Trish Stratus, and then he really just turns on a dime when he sees a Linda McMahon pull up in the limousine on the Titantron. And that perfectly described the type of character that Eric Bischoff was. And it really showed and defined the type of weasel he was, and he just played this character so well, because you got to understand that in this clip, he's having a match against Trish Stratus, and whenever he fought, he would dress up like a karate instructor with the black belt and everything, and it was just so funny to see how this weasel, because that's what his on-screen character was, would use his power to, push around weaker, characters and females in this particular instance. But Lynn McMahon comes to the ring, and she has a message to speak on behalf of the board of directors that directly concerns Eric Bischoff.
There he goes.
At least try to explain.
No. Let me finish here, Eric. However, the board has reached a compromise.
Uh-oh, compromise.
Starting tomorrow morning, a new general manager will share your duties and responsibilities on a 50-50 basis.
50-50 basis. Ms. McMahon, I don't know how does that work? What do you mean 50-50 basis?
I think you're going to have to make it work, Eric. You see, the new general manager is co-general manager is someone who probably even has more in tune with the audience today. Someone who's sensitive.
Sensitive?
Someone who knows the difference between right and wrong.
Who could that be? Who could that
And
be?
Eric, I dare say, someone who will keep you in line.
Who is this co-general manager? I'm sure she'll tell us.
So let me just stop all the suspense
Here we go.
and bring out the new co-general manager of Raw.
Oh my God! Is Linda McMahon serious? It's true! Stone Cold Steve Austin! Stone Cold Steve Austin is the new co-general manager of Raw! Look at the look on Eric Bischoff's face! Fired! Bischoff fired Stone Cold a month ago! But the board of directors have reappointed Stone Cold here tonight as a co-general manager. And this crowd cannot believe it. But you better believe it. Oh my God. What is this going to mean in the future? I have no idea, but I can assure you it's not going to bode well for Eric Bischoff. The Texas Rattlesnake is back! What a bombshell dropped by Linda McMahon! Your new 50...
Well, as you hear, Stone Cold Steve Austin gets appointed as the co-general manager to Monday Night Raw to split the duties 50-50 with Eric Bischoff. And as you heard, and I completely forgot about this, how they wrote Stone Cold Steve Austin off of television in the first place when he, in real life, retired was that Bischoff fired him following his loss to The Rock at WrestleMania. So then you already had that pre-existing dynamic to tie on. And Bischoff had recently fired Stone Cold Steve Austin's real-life friend Jim Ross from the commentating booth. So Stone Cold Steve Austin comes out, and to say the very least, their very first interaction as co-workers did not disappoint.
The co-worker, Eric. Look at that. Co-general manager. Starting tomorrow morning, I guess, huh? 50-50.
How you doing, Eric? You all right? You feel good? You nervous? Scared? What's the deal? No, you ain't got to say nothing. I bet you're thinking there's no way this thing can work. You're thinking that we can't be partners. Work together. As a unit. Put it there.
I don't know, Steve. I mean, this ain't a marriage made in heaven, you know what I mean?
So, right off the bat, you're saying that you don't trust me.
Well, I didn't say that I didn't trust you, but let's...
No, yeah, you didn't have to say it. I can read all of you. You don't trust me.
No, I'm not...
No, listen. If you think Eric Bischoff should trust Stone Cold Steve Austin, give me a hell yeah. I want to make sure you heard that. I said, give me a hell yeah. How about not shaking my hand? You're saying you don't trust me.
Damn it, Steve! I want this to work. I really do.
Do you?
I do.
Promise?
Yes.
Swear?
Yes.
You mean it?
I mean it.
From the bottom of your heart?
From the bottom of my
You're
heart.
telling the truth.
You know I'm telling the truth. I want it to work. I've always wanted it to work.
Well, then, I guess when we shake hands, we're going to be partners.
Partners.
And get along. 50-50 and get along.
50-50.
50-50. All right. Hey. Listen to me. The key word was tomorrow.
Wait! Stunner! Stone Cold just stunned Eric Bischoff. This whole arrangement, as Stone Cold said, doesn't start until tomorrow morning.
So this exchange, this first ever exchange between the co-GMs was pretty much painting a picture for what we would see for their entire run as co-general managers together. And it was always just this funny dynamic of Bischoff favoring the heels, which was often an evolution at the time, and Steve Austin being there to right the wrongs and, pull it more in the face of more in favor rather of the baby faces. And we saw this on and off for, I want to say, a solid 6 months here. And it was cool to see because people wanted Stone Cold Steve Austin still. He still had a lot of juice left in the tank, but just physically could not compete in the ring anymore. And that is what was cool about seeing Stone Cold Steve Austin come back on a full-time basis, just not as an in-ring competitor. And, Stone Cold Steve Austin by this time had done everything he had to do in the ring. I think he was a 6-time world champion, main evented, 4 WrestleManias by this point, faced off against The Rock, HBK, Triple H. And while, for all intents and purposes, the fans surely wanted him to have another 4 or 5 years as the top guy in the company, and was still certainly over, arguably more so than anyone in the company still in 2003, if we couldn't get him in the ring, it was good to at least see him in some capacity on television each and every week, and putting him as the counterpart, the yin to, as Bischoff's yang, so to speak. It was just a perfect way to utilize him in a way to directly be connected to the fans. And, it wasn't a one-way street here. Eric Bischoff was the perfect antagonist to Stone Cold Steve Austin, aside from Vince McMahon. And by this point in time, Vince McMahon really wasn't a factor on Monday Night Raw. He was coming off of his big feud that culminated at WrestleMania 19 with Hulk Hogan. And Vince McMahon went away for, I want to say, about 2 years following that program with Hulk Hogan. From the spring of 2003, just about, I want to say, late 2005, Vince McMahon really was a non-factor on television. So with that in mind, and knowing the pre-existing great dynamic Austin had previously had with a heel authority figure, who better to pit him against than Eric Bischoff in place of Vince McMahon? Because aside from Vince McMahon, Bischoff is the best heel authority figure ever to be on WWE television. And the following week on Monday Night Raw, they had their first, I guess, official encounter. I know they already had this encounter that I said was their first, but their first official encounter to start a Monday Night Raw where both of them were in charge. And I gotta say, you want to talk about good comedy that WWE desperately tries to portray in the modern day product? Look no further than this dynamic between the co-GMs of Monday Night Raw. Steve Austin opened the show by making decisions to go over the head of Eric Bischoff, and for one, bringing back the Intercontinental Championship that had been relinquished and just become vacant in recent weeks as a result of one of Bischoff's decisions. So Austin comes back, announces a battle royal for the vacant Intercontinental Championship, and that leads to Eric Bischoff coming to the ring to confront Stone Cold Steve Austin.
I, Steve Austin, are co-general managers. The emphasis is on co. All right?
I understand that.
Well, good. Then you'll understand that any decision, especially one of the magnitude of the Intercontinental Championship, that's a decision that you and I have to discuss and agree upon mutually.
Now, I understand that, but I figured since we're both trying to better the show, that was a no-brainer. It was something easy. I went ahead, maybe I stepped on your toes a little bit, but that's kind of the way it is with me. You understand, right?
Well, let me tell you the way it is with me. See, you want to bring back the Intercontinental Championship. I understand that. And you want to do it in Judgment Day. I understand that. I know damn well that you know that I was the one that abolished that title.
Can I go on with the other thing that I was going to do tonight?
What do you mean? We didn't discuss any other thing that you were going to do tonight, Steve.
Well, we didn't have to discuss anything because, once again, I knew that we're trying to better this damn product. We want to make Raw the hottest son ever. So I took another step and made another decision, and I didn't think about you, and I should have thought of you, and I should have talked with you, but I didn't. But I got to get it off my chest right now because we're killing time.
Here we go again. You cannot do that.
Why not?
What do you do?
I made a decision. I hired somebody.
What do you mean you hired somebody? You can't do that. You've got to talk to me first.
But I did. I hired somebody.
Who did Stone Cold hire? I don't know.
You know, I ain't got a whole lot of friends here in the WWE. But I went in and hired my good buddy, the best damn announcer in the history of pro wrestling.
What? I don't know who that is.
Good old JR, Jim Ross.
Stone Cold Steve Austin takes it upon himself just to make an acquisition to hire you. Well, welcome back, JR, because it'll give me just one more opportunity to fire your You're out of here. What? Can Eric do it? He's fired.
No. He's hired.
He's fired.
He's hired.
He's fired.
Hired.
Fired.
Hired.
Fired.
Hired.
Fired.
Hired.
Fired. What a resume JR's going to have. He's been hired and fired like 15 times.
So this was a perfect example. This was a literal example of what figuratively went on each and every Monday Night Raw for the succeeding 6 months. Just them going back and forth. Austin constantly trying to screw over Eric Bischoff. Eric Bischoff trying to do the most dastardly deeds possible just to, be the most over-the-top heel possible in WWE. And it was really good. It was really well done. They had great dynamic. And I know I already talked about how good Bischoff was, but I remember he had an office. Obviously, those make-believe offices they set up in each building they go to when they are traveling in a non-COVID world. And I remember he would have a picture of himself smiling in the exact same attire he would wear each and every week, and that leather jacket and a dark shirt, or sometimes he would wear like a Raw branded shirt, and it was just a perfect heel character, a perfect guy for Steve Austin to play off of. And this ultimately led to a Survivor Series match, a 5-on-5 elimination match, classic Survivor Series rules, in which the winner would be the sole general manager of Monday Night Raw. And it was Team Bischoff that featured Scott Steiner, Mark Henry, Chris Jericho, Christian, and Randy Orton, who was still part of Evolution at the time, against Team Austin, which was Booker T, Rob Van Dam, the Dudley Boys, and Shawn Michaels. And this ended with Shawn Michaels as the sole survivor for Stone Cold Steve Austin's team, going up against Christian, Jericho, and Randy Orton. And he eliminated Jericho, he eliminated Christian, and just when he had, it seemed, the match won, Batista interfered on behalf of Randy Orton, and in part, or in result rather, Eric Bischoff, and gave the win to Team Bischoff, eliminating HBK with the help of Batista, and making Bischoff the sole general manager of Monday Night Raw. So Bischoff had a couple of weeks there where he was the only GM. I remember Mick Foley showed up for a brief, I believe, 2-3 weeks stint as the co-GM as well. But by and large, Bischoff had total authority over Monday Night Raw until early 2004. And Bischoff maintained having the absolute power on Monday Night Raw until a certain Raw happened, and the main event was Shawn Michaels versus Triple H for the World Heavyweight Championship. And at the ending of the match, Bischoff ran into the ring, taking the place of the referee, and counted the 1-2-3 in favor of HBK, seemingly giving Shawn Michaels his second ever World Heavyweight Championship victory. But on the replay, it showed that HBK's shoulders were down at the same time as Triple H, and Bischoff deemed it a draw, in turn resulting in Triple H retaining the World Heavyweight Championship. And then following these events, he subsequently fired Shawn Michaels from Monday Night Raw and continuing on his heel path. But just when we thought that HBK was fired and Bischoff was going to close the show as running roughshod on the product, someone made a return for the betterment of the fans.
You ain't got to say a damn word. Stone Cold Steve Austin is back. I'm back on my terms, my conditions. As far as I'm concerned, Shawn Michaels is rehired.
Rehired already?
Matter of fact, I think Shawn Michaels deserves a rematch.
What?
You see, Eric, there's a new sheriff in town, and his name is Stone Cold Steve Austin.
A new sheriff in town! What the hell does that mean? A rattlesnake is back!
And that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so.
My God, Monday Night Raw might never be the same! Happy New Year, everybody! My God, what a night! What a night!
So Steve Austin returns after just about a month and a half hiatus to become the sheriff of Monday Night Raw, which in turn kind of became the co-general manager again, but just with a different title. He started coming out with his ATV, which was really, really funny, and it gave us just about another 3 or 4 months of Stone Cold Steve Austin in an authority type of role on Monday Night Raw to kind of counterbalance that heel persona of Eric Bischoff. And obviously we saw him have a brief program with Brock Lesnar as Brock Lesnar stole his ATV, and then he went over to SmackDown and they brawled, and that was en route to the build towards Brock versus Goldberg in their infamous first ever match at WrestleMania 20, which Stone Cold Steve Austin refereed. And then just after that WrestleMania, Austin kind of went away and he never really came back on a full-time basis. And that sheriff run from early January until just after WrestleMania 20 was the last time we saw Stone Cold Steve Austin as an on-screen persona on a week-to-week full-time basis. And why I thought it was important to review this rivalry is because it shows that the authority type of figure, that general manager or commissioner type of character, if done right, is a really, really good asset to programming. And I hear a lot of people complain about Adam Pearce, and I'm not his biggest fan, but I enjoy having someone where the buck stops. You know, someone who is the ultimate decision maker. There is nothing more I hate on WWE television than when a character just says, but why don't we have a match right now? Get a referee out here. Like, who the hell are you? You know, like, there's no one directing the ship. You know, I don't want a program where the inmates are running the asylum. You have to have an authority figure. And it doesn't mean that they have to be on television each and every week. Like, I think that we all got tired from the days of, you know, Triple H and Stephanie McMahon opening Raw every week. But look, I'm not going to lie. When they had Daniel Bryan as the SmackDown general manager, I really enjoyed that. When they had Mick Foley as the commissioner on Raw, I enjoyed that. Eric Bischoff was great. Teddy Long, okay, it got tired and it was kind of an old shtick by the end, but he was good as well. Just these figureheads to say that whether they're heel or babyface, they are the ultimate decision maker on the program. And look, in this instance with Austin and Bischoff, they had their own separate program in which it kind of gave comedy to the show and organic comedy. And obviously it helped that you had a guy there like like Stone Cold Steve Austin, who was arguably the biggest competitor, biggest superstar in the history of the company, a by and large a crowd favorite. Everyone loves Stone Cold Steve Austin, but it can be done even with everyday authority type of figures and even in a heel role. Like, I know, like I previously said, the authority gimmick got beat to death, but a guy like Eric Bischoff as the GM, or even, let's say, more modern date, if you put in, I don't know, Paul Heyman as a SmackDown GM or a Raw GM, I think that would go a long way in improving the product. Maybe I'm on an island with that decision, but when I watch back this program between Bischoff and Steve Austin, I found it gave us a solid year of really good programming from a heel and babyface authority figure, and one that didn't overtake and steal the spotlight of the in-ring competitors at the time, like Jericho and Triple H and HBK, and even Goldberg, who was a main event guy on Monday Night Raw at that time. Well, look, guys, I hope that you enjoyed this Rivalries edition, the first one of 2021. I'm looking forward to a great year and hopefully much, much better than last year. We're off and running here at the WWE Podcast. As always, you can get me on Twitter at @DeMarco25. You can email Matt at realwwepodcast@gmail.com. And look, I'll talk to you next week.